The old man in the mansion always gave me a $2 tip every Thursday for 3 straight years. Just $2. Not 10, not 20, 2. His huge house looked like it cost more than I would ever earn in my entire life. And yet he tipped like someone who counted every penny. I used to think he was the stingiest rich person I had ever met. Whenever I drove up his long driveway and handed him his usual medium pepperoni pizza, he would give me exact change and 2 wrinkled $1 bills. My coworkers joked about it all the time. "You got the Ashford order again? That old guy tips worse than broke students." I would just laugh and say, at least he's consistent. But honestly, it bothered me. Not because I desperately needed those extra dollars, though they did help, but because I couldn't understand him. He lived alone in a huge 3-story mansion, ordered the same pizza at the same time every Thursday, and always gave the same tiny tip. He didn't fit the idea I had of rich people. He was different in a way I couldn't explain. What I didn't know was that the tip was never about the money. It was his way of staying connected. To me, his only way, because he was too afraid to tell the truth. That old man, Murray Ashford, was actually my grandfather. He had been watching me from a distance my whole life. I didn't learn any of this until 3 weeks after the last time I delivered his pizza. Murray passed away in his sleep. I didn't even know until his lawyer called me. He said Murray left something specifically for me. When I went to the law office, the lawyer gave me a manila envelope. Inside was an old brass key and a document. The paper was a DNA test. On one side was my name. On the other side was a man named Warren Ashford. Under both names was one word, match. The lawyer explained that Warren was Murray's younger son, my father, and he had died before I was born. All the questions I'd carried my whole life suddenly had a name attached to them. The old man I delivered pizza to every Thursday. He knew I was his grandson the whole time. The key he left me was supposed to lead me to the rest of the story. One I wasn't ready for but had to face. My name is Damon Kelly. I'm 24 years old, and I've been delivering pizzas for Lombardi's pizzeria for 5 years. They hired me when I had nothing, and the job helped me support my mom, who's a nurse working long hours for too little pay. Life hasn't been easy, but I've managed. That's just what you do for the people you love. My mom raised me by herself. She never complained, never acted like I made her life harder, but I always knew things were different for us. There was no dad at the table, no man showing me how to throw a ball or fix things around the house. It was just me and her figuring out life one day at a time. I only asked about my dad once. I was 7, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, and I looked up and said, "Mom, where is my dad?" She froze just for a moment, but I saw the pain in her eyes. Then she forced a smile and said, "He had to leave before you were born, sweetheart. It's just us now. And that's enough." I never asked again. Not because I didn't care, but because I could see how much the question hurt her. It felt like touching an old injury that never healed, so I kept my curiosity to myself. I told myself it didn't matter. Lots of kids grew up without fathers. I wasn't unusual. I wasn't broken. I was fine. But the truth was I wasn't fine. There was always an empty space inside me, a missing piece I couldn't name. Half of who I was felt like a blank page, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, the feeling stayed with me. That was my life when I first started delivering pizzas to Murray Ashford's mansion, angry without a reason, restless without knowing what I wanted. Just a guy driving an old Honda Civic trying to pay the bills. The Ashford estate was at the very end of Wexler Road, about 15 minutes outside town. You couldn't miss it. Tall iron gates, stone pillars, a long winding driveway, perfectly cut lawns, and finally that huge colonial mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. Seeing it made you realize how different some people's worlds were. On my first delivery there, I was nervous. I expected someone rich and impatient, ready to complain about the pizza being slightly off. But when the door opened, the man who greeted me was nothing like that. Murray Ashford looked to be in his late 70s, tall, a little bent with age, silver hair, and eyes that seemed older than the rest of him. He moved slowly but with purpose. He wasn't weak, just thoughtful, like every step mattered. He had this calm presence that made you stand up straighter without meaning to. "Medium pepperoni?" I asked, holding out the box. He nodded. "That's the one." "Thank you, son." He paid with exact change and added 2 $1 bills. I remember thinking how strange it was that a man with a house like that tipped only $2, but his voice was warm, And he looked right at me when he said thank you. Not many people did that. I put the money in my pocket and walked back to my car. That was the first Thursday. There would be many more all the same. Same order, same time, same $2 tip. Every week he asked small questions. Cold night. You keeping warm? Busy shift? You doing okay, son? Simple things. Nothing personal. But the way he asked, the way he lingered at the door like he wanted to say more. It always felt like something was unspoken. I told myself I was imagining it. Rich old men didn't care about delivery guys. People like me were invisible to people like him. I had no idea how wrong I was. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the last time I delivered a pizza to the mansion. I was lying on my couch scrolling through my phone on my day off, when an unfamiliar number appeared. I almost ignored it. I'm glad I didn't. Mr. Kelly, this is Vincent Cray. I'm an attorney handling the estate of Mr. Murray Ashford. I sat up straight without even thinking. Wait, Murray Ashford? The man on Wexler Road? Yes, Vincent said. I'm sorry to tell you this, but Mr. Ashford passed away 5 days ago. He died peacefully in his sleep. I didn't know how to react. I barely knew the man, but the news still hit me in a strange way, like something important had suddenly disappeared, even though I never understood it. I'm sorry to hear that, I said quietly. He always seemed like a good person. There was a short silence. Mr. Kelly, Vincent continued. I'm calling because Mr. Ashford left very specific instructions about you. He asked that you come to my office. He left something in your name. I almost laughed. For me, sir, I think there's been a mix-up. I just delivered his pizzas. I didn't really know him. There is no mistake, Vincent said calmly. Mr. Ashford was clear about this. Could you come tomorrow at noon? Curiosity got the best of me, so I agreed. I couldn't imagine what a man like Murray would leave for someone like me. Maybe a thank you note? Maybe he prepaid a tip. None of it made sense, but then again he never made sense to me. The next day I drove to a law office on Chambers Street. The building was old but classy, polished floors, quiet. Hallways, the kind of place where serious decisions were made, I found. Vincent's office on the 3rd floor, and knocked before stepping inside. Vincent looked exactly like the type of lawyer who handled important things, tall, calm, organized. He shook my hand and motioned for me to sit. Thank you for coming, Mr. Kelly. I know this situation must feel strange. That's one way to put it, I said, trying to act normal even though my heart was beating too fast. Vincent sat down and folded his hands. I knew Mr. Ashford for more than 30 years. He kept to himself. But he was a thoughtful man. Before he passed, he spent a lot of time putting his affairs in order. One of his final instructions involved you. He opened a drawer, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it across the desk. He told me to give this to you only after his death and only face to face. I lifted the envelope. It felt heavier than it looked. Inside were 2 items. An old brass key scratched and worn, and a folded, official-looking paper. I unfolded the document and read it once, then again, and again. It was a DNA test. On one side my name, Damon Kelly. On the other, Warren Ashford, a name I had never heard before. And at the bottom, in bold letters, match. I don't get it, I whispered. Who is Warren Ashford? Vincent took off his glasses and placed them on the desk. His voice softened. Warren was Murray's younger son. He died in a car accident in August of 1999, 1 month before you were born. The room tilted. I grabbed the arm of the chair to steady myself. So, you're saying Warren Ashford was my father? Vincent nodded gently. That's what Murray told me. He had the DNA test done years ago, using samples he collected privately. He never shared the results with anyone, not even his other son. My father, the man I had wondered about for my entire life, the empty space in every childhood memory, finally had a name. Warren Ashford, and he had died before I ever entered the world. And the old man who tipped me $2 every week? He wasn't a random rich stranger. He was my grandfather. He knew exactly who I was every single time I stood at his door, and he never said anything. Why? I asked, my throat tight. Why didn't he just tell me? Before Vincent could respond, the office door burst open. A man stormed inside, face red with fury. A woman followed him, her expression sharp and icy. One look at them and I recognized the type, people who believed the world belonged to them and hated anyone who got in the way. This is ridiculous, the man snapped, glaring at me. You expect us to believe my father left something to a pizza delivery kid? This is fraud. I won't stand for it. Vincent stood with calm authority. Mr. Ashford, your father's instructions were very clear. The woman stepped closer, eyes full of venom. We'll fight this. Every part of it. You're not family. You're nothing. And if you think you're getting a single cent of what belongs to us, you're dreaming. I stared at them, at their anger, their entitlement, and realized something. I hadn't asked for any of this. I wasn't chasing money or a place in their family. I only came because Murray wanted me to. But somehow I had been dropped into a war I never started. After leaving the office, I drove straight to my mother's house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. The DNA test sat on the seat beside me like it weighed 100 pounds. Every glance at it made my world shift all over again. My whole life, everything I thought I knew was built on a secret, and the person who kept it was my mother. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a full minute, breathing, trying not to burst inside. I didn't want to go in angry, but I couldn't wait anymore. My mom was in the kitchen when I walked in, still in her hospital scrubs, chopping vegetables for dinner. She smiled warmly. Damon, what a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. Are you hungry? I'm making soup. I didn't speak. I took the DNA test and placed it on the table in front of her. She looked down. The color drained from her face. The knife slipped from her hand and hit the cutting board. Where did you get this? She whispered. Murray Ashford's lawyer gave it to me, I said. He died last week. He left this for me, along with a key. I set the brass key on the table beside the paper. He knew, Mom. He knew I was his grandson. Every week I delivered to that house, he knew. And you knew too, didn't you? You knew who my father was, and you never told me. My mother sank into a chair, trembling. Tears filled her eyes. I was going to tell you, she said, voice cracking. I kept waiting for the right moment. But every time I thought about it, I got scared. And scared turned into silence. Scared of what? I asked. Scared of the truth? She lifted her head, and for the first time, I saw how heavy the secret had been for her, like she'd been carrying a weight for 24 years. I was scared of losing you, she said softly. Scared of what that family would do if they found out about you. Then she told me everything. She met Warren when he was 22. She worked at a diner near the college. He came in every morning for coffee. He was charming, daring, nothing like the boys she knew growing up. They fell fast and hard the way young people do. They were together for 6 months. When she told him she was pregnant, he panicked. He said he needed time to talk to his family to figure things out. He promised he'd do the right thing. 1 week later, he was gone, killed in a crash on a rainy night while driving on Route 17. He died before paramedics reached him. I went to the funeral, my mother whispered. I stood in the back. I didn't talk to anyone, but Murray's wife saw me. She knew who I was. Her voice shook. She pulled me aside and warned me. She said if I ever came near their family again, she would ruin me. She called me trash, blamed me for his death, said Warren only crashed because he was upset about me and the baby. My mom wiped her tears. I was 23, pregnant, alone. I didn't have money to fight them. So I left. I moved away. I raised you on my own. But Murray knew, I said quietly. He found out somehow. She nodded. A few years ago, I got a letter. No name, no return address. It said, I know about the boy. I'm sorry for everything. I will make it right. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to do. I hoped ignoring it would make it go away. I sat across from her, the anger draining out of me, replaced with something deeper, sorrow, understanding. She didn't keep the truth to hurt me. She kept it because she was afraid of the people who wanted to erase me. But I couldn't hide anymore. Murray Ashford had spent his last 3 years ordering pizza just to see me. He had watched from afar as I grew up, collecting pieces of my life like someone trying to hold on to something precious. And before he died, he left me a key to something he wanted me to find. I have to know, I said. I have to find out why he never told me himself. I have to know what this key opens. My mother squeezed my hand. I know, and I won't stop you. Just be careful. Those people, the Ashfords, they don't see you as family. They see you as a threat. I thought of Hank and Tessa, their hatred, their disgust. My mother was right. They would try to stop me, but after a lifetime of not knowing who I wasn't stopping now. I had a key, and I was going to find the lock. The current value is over $600,000. My breath caught. I stared at the numbers, stunned. But Murray's next sentence made the money feel almost irrelevant. This trust is not a gift. It is restitution. It is what should have been yours from the beginning. What your father would have wanted for you. Use it wisely. Use it to build a life better than the one I gave you. And if you choose to walk away from the Ashford family forever, I will not blame you. You owe them nothing. But there is one more thing you must know. I frowned and turned to the next page. There is a ledger in the bottom drawer of this desk. It contains records, bank transfers, invoices, and correspondence related to a matter I have kept hidden for decades. If Hank and Tessa discover its existence, they will stop at nothing to obtain it. The information in that ledger is the reason I rented this storage unit in secret, the reason I could never tell you the truth while I was alive. It involves your father's death and the events leading up to it. Events that were not accidents. My stomach twisted. I have protected this secret for too long. It is no longer my burden to carry. Whatever you choose to do with what you find, know that I trust your judgment, more than I ever trusted my own. I am sorry, Damon, for everything. Murray Ashford. I lowered the papers slowly, letting them hang from my hand. The silence in the storage unit felt dense, almost physical, like the air had grown heavier around me. My pulse thudded in my ears. Not an accident. The words wouldn't leave my head. I crouched down and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside was a large black ledger, the leather cover worn and cracked at the corners. It looked old, older than the storage unit, maybe older than me. I lifted it out carefully as if it might crumble. On the cover, embossed in dull gold letters, was a single word. Warren, my father's name. I ran my thumb over it, feeling the indentation. Then, behind me, gravel crunched. Not just footsteps, hurried ones. I turned. At the mouth of the storage unit stood Hank Ashford, breathing hard, his dress shirt plastered to his chest with sweat. Behind him, Tessa stepped into view. Her arms were crossed, her expression icy and triumphant. Told you he'd come here, she said. Hank's eyes locked onto the ledger in my hands. So that's what you found. His voice was low, controlled in a way that made the hair on my arms stand up. That belongs to our family. Hand it over, Damon. He stepped forward. I took a step back. Hank's jaw flexed. I'm not asking. Tessa smiled. The storage unit door rattled. Behind me, as a sudden gust of wind swept through the facility, slamming metal against metal like a warning. I tightened my grip on the ledger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. There was also a deed to a cabin on Lake Monroe. It had belonged to my father and his father before him. It was always meant to stay in the family. Now it was mine. Murray wrote that he knew this did not make up for not speaking to me for 24 years. He said he knew he could not buy my forgiveness with money or property, but he hoped it would give me a better future. He hoped it would give me choices he never gave himself. You are an Ashford, Damon, he wrote. You always were. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I put the letter down and looked at the boxes around me. I opened them one at a time. Inside were photos of me as a child, taken from far away by someone I never noticed. There were report cards with notes written in the margins, newspaper clippings, legal papers, a trust fund statement with my name on it, and the deed to a cabin I had never seen. I sat down on the cold floor and cried, not because of the money or the property, but because of the old man who had loved me in secret. He had watched me grow up through photos and Thursday night pizza deliveries. He had spent his last years trying to fix his mistakes. He was my grandfather, and even if he never said it to me, he loved me. The legal fight lasted 4 months. Hank and Tessa Ashford challenged everything. They said I had tricked Murray in his final years. They called me a scammer and said I took advantage of a weak old man. They hired expensive lawyers and filed one motion after another, trying to drown me in paperwork and fees I couldn't pay. But Vincent Cray was ready. Murray had spent years building proof no one could break. Vincent showed the court decades of documents. Bank records showing payments to private investigators, photos with dates written on the back, and Murray's journals filled with entries about me, his guilt, his regret, and his wish to tell me the truth one day. The DNA test was only the last piece of a puzzle Murray had been putting together for more than 20 years. The judge ended the case in less than an hour. He told Hank and Tessa that Murray had the right to leave his estate to whoever he wanted. I was officially recognized as Murray's grandson. The trust fund was mine. The cabin was mine. They could not take it away. Outside the courthouse, Hank confronted me. His face was red and his jaw was tight with anger. He grabbed my arm and pulled me close. "You think you won something? You think this makes you one of us? You're still just a delivery boy. You're nothing." I looked at him for a long moment. I thought of everything I could say back to him. But then I remembered something from Murray's journals, an entry from 3 years earlier that Vincent had shown me during the trial. Murray once wrote in his journal, "Hank called today, the first time in 8 months. He wanted money for a new boat. He didn't ask how I was feeling. He didn't ask about my health. He only wanted money. Sometimes I wonder if he ever loved me, or if I was only a bank account to him." I pulled my arm out of Hank's grip and stepped back. "Your father wrote about you," I said quietly. "He wrote about how lonely he felt, how you never visited him, how you only called when you wanted something. I went to see him every Thursday for 3 years. I didn't even know he was my grandfather, but I still showed up. I handed him his pizza and asked how he was. I looked him in the eyes and treated him like a real person. That's the difference between us. I was there. You weren't." Hank couldn't say anything. He just stood there, his mouth open, trying to find words. His wife pulled on his sleeve, and they walked away without looking back. I never saw them again. 2 weeks later, I brought my mother to the cabin at Lake Monroe. It was smaller than I expected, a simple 2-bedroom house with a porch that wrapped around the front. The view of the lake was so peaceful it made the rest of the world disappear. Inside, it smelled like wood and old books. The walls were covered with photos of people I didn't know, generations of Ashfords who had lived there and watched the same sunsets. My mother stood at the railing looking out at the water. Tears filled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I never thought I'd see this place," she said. "Warren used to tell me about it. He wanted to bring me here someday. He said it was the most peaceful place on earth." I put my arm around her. "Now it's ours," I said. "A place that belongs to us." She rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry I kept the truth from you for so long," she said. "I thought I was protecting you. I didn't know I was only delaying what had to happen. You did the best you could," I told her. "That's all anyone can do." Later, I went back to Lombardi's Pizzeria one last time. I wasn't angry. I just wanted to say thank you. Maria, the owner's daughter, had given me a job when I was 19 and had nothing. She had trusted me when no one else would. I owed her more than I could ever repay. I told her I was going back to school, to study veterinary science, the same work Murray had devoted his life to. It felt right, like I was continuing something he had started. Maria hugged me. She said she always knew I was meant for bigger things. I promised I would visit, and I meant it. The trust fund gave me choices I never had. I paid off my mother's medical bills. I bought her a new car because the old one barely ran. I enrolled in classes at the state university and began building a future I never thought possible. But the money wasn't what mattered. The cabin wasn't what mattered either. What mattered was finally understanding where I came from, knowing that my father had loved my mother, that he had wanted to be part of my life, that he died trying to become a better man. What mattered was knowing that my grandfather had watched over me from afar, that he loved me in the only way he knew how, and that his $2 tips were never really about the money. I used to think family was only about blood. Now I understand that family is about showing up. It is about the small things. A simple question asked on a rainy night, a letter written for someone you might never meet, a brass key left behind to reveal the truth. Murray Ashford was my grandfather. He never said the words aloud, but he loved me. And that love, quiet, hidden and imperfect, changed everything. I hung a framed photograph of him in the cabin above the fireplace. The picture came from one of the boxes. Murray standing on the same porch decades ago, smiling at the camera as if he had all the time in the world. Under it, I placed the brass key on a small wooden plaque. The key that unlocked my past. Some people spend their whole lives searching for where they belong. I found my answer in a storage unit, in a stack of old photographs, in the handwriting of a man who was too afraid to speak, but brave enough to write. My name is Damon Kelly. I am an Ashford, and I am finally home. If this story meant something to you, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you discovered a secret like this about your own family? Thank you for taking the time to read my journey and for being part of it. Your support means more than you know.